Aquí mismo estamos, señores. Bienvenidos. It's Saturday, 11 o'clock, folks. And if you haven't gotten up from your bed, well, this is a very good reason to go ahead and do so, because on this show, we've got somebody who's got a great story on getting onto media, becoming a writer, so much more. If you guys want to understand what it's like to be a reporter, to be telling people about your local news, when it's something that you maybe never dreamed of. If you ever thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to school and I'm going to study this one thing and this is who I'm going to become. But life takes a complete turn and you go from that to becoming a published author, to being someone who has interviewed some notables like Dr. Deepak Chopra, Fran Drescher. If you remember the show, I had a crush on her. You've got so many other people. I mean, the late Jerry Springer, Wyclef Jean. She has interviewed these folks. And I'm so happy to have her on the show. So make sure to tune into this program From the Neighborhood. We've got a lot in store, and that's just to get you guys warmed up. But my DJ here, Triple R, he's got something to get you going. So let's jump to that. Let's go.
De regreso con Anthony from the Neighborhood.
That's right. We're back to the show From the Neighborhood, and here we're about to have a great time. As I mentioned right before the break, we have someone here who has taken a turn in their life and has really created a place for themselves in terms of reporting on the news, journalism, I mean, so much more. And I've already mentioned some of the big names that she's interviewed. So I'm so happy to have her here because she is the type of person that's going to help me break through the stereotypes of what a neighborhood is all about. Especially the fact that we grow up in these neighborhoods and we forget that the person next door could be doing something that's very remarkable, something that's outstanding, but we don't talk to them. We rather go on social media and reach out to somebody who's in a different country, in a different stratosphere, rather than connecting with the person right next door and really acknowledging and paying homage to these neighborhoods that have some stellar folks who are living right inside. So let's get a real sense of the neighborhood and break apart the preconceived notion and get to connect with our neighbor and connect with me. I'm at From the Neighborhood on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you look, From the Neighborhood. Reach out to me. And if you've got a great story, or if you have a friend and they've got a great story, then get on the website, fromtheneighborhood.com. Go ahead and be a guest. And if you guys have a business and you want to connect with the people of the community and be in that conversation about community, then sponsor the show. And that's real easy. Fromtheneighborhood.com. See what it's all about. Read about the show. Know what the mission is. And then align your brand with that, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to connect with people. So with that, folks, I got to say one last thing, actually. My store. I keep forgetting to plug this in. Shop.fromtheneighborhood.com. Pick up the gear. I'm wearing the shirt. I am Brooklyn, because guess what? My guest is from Brooklyn, and I'm so happy to give her the big warm welcome. Melissa Billie Clark, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so very much.
I had to drop that in there because I'm like, wait, I'm wearing the sweatshirt and I forgot about my store.
I love it very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I am beautiful. Brooklyn. I know you are Brooklyn.
Yes, sir. I love it. Yes.
So we gave you a great intro. I'm going to take credit for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. You're very kind. And I love that you talk about community.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, listen, you're all about that. And you've been on all levels of community.
Yeah.
These high profile interviews that I said before, yes. We got there, and I'm just going to, go into the story of your journey to get there, because it wasn't a straight path. And I tell people all the time, the journey to your destination or to your next step, you don't know what it's going to be like. Just get on the train, right? Yeah. L train.
L train.
The L train.
I won't go on the L train anymore.
The L train is the only train going into Canarsie. That's definitely that. And 'cause I know the neighborhood.
Yes.
I used to play in one of the parks, Little League. I forgot what it was. Right at the end of the L train, there's a park there. I used to play Little League there all the time.
I'm trying to think where. I know Canarsie Park.
Is it by the school?
I don't even know.
I can't remember.
It's near the Belt Parkway. I know that for a fact.
My team was called the Blue Jays at that time.
Cute.
Yeah, from Brooklyn.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what we used to do. So talk to me about growing up. You're young. And by the way, how we connected was that I was on her program.
Yes.
She interviewed me. But I was getting into conversation with you, and I'm like, wait a second, you're from around here?
That's right.
How did it start?
It started back in 1980.
Okay.
1980. So I grew up in Canarsie, and with my mom, dad, my two sisters. And, I loved my neighborhood. It's very diverse. As I told you before we spoke, my mother was from Spanish Harlem.
Wow.
So, she had soul, that woman.
Uptown represent.
Miss Isabel Clark. And she grew up in Spanish Harlem. And basically like us, I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood, which I love. You know, my neighbors right now, they take care of me because, you know, we all grew up together. And, you know, my dad was from Brooklyn as well. My mom was from Manhattan, dad was from Brooklyn. And they met by chance.
Yeah.
He walked into the wrong building. And, you know, they had us 3 girls.
What year was that?
This had to be, my sister was born in 67, so maybe 66, 65.
In the 60s, he walked into the wrong building?
He walked into the wrong building.
Because in the 80s, every building was the wrong building.
It's true. That's true.
So you guys, how did you end up in Canarsie? Did they get together and move immediately there?
So it's so funny because I was driving here and I passed by Dix Hills. It says Dix Hills 3 miles away. And they had a house here.
Okay.
Then my dad wanted to build a home in the Poconos.
Wow.
So they ended up in Canarsie. So they sold the home here. And then my mom didn't want to leave. She's like, I can't leave this. She grew up in, you know, in a beautiful area.
Urban lifestyle,
urban
right?
lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad because that's what my father wanted to garden. He wanted he always wanted a cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
He always wanted a cabin in the woods.
And talk about a man cave, right?
He wanted, yes.
He's like, I want a log cabin.
Yeah.
Did he wear a lumberjack shirt and like a beanie?
Sometime he did.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go.
And
There
the
you go.
beard.
And the beard. Yes. And that has all come back in style now because that
Yes.
is something that's like, you know, it's tied into Brooklyn at this point.
It's true.
Yeah.
But I will never date a guy who has those skinny jeans on. I can't do it. I can't do it. I talk
You're
about
not a Wrangler kind of guy?
No, it's too feminine for me. Like I love like when a guy wears, I'm sorry. To
You know,
talk to
it was
about
those
this.
brands like the Wranglers, the Lees.
Yes. Dungarees or
Yes, something like
not
that. I can't
Oshkosh,
remember.
but
I wore Oshkosh. You know, I was a big baby when I was small, so they had to give me that. And I grew up in Brooklyn. My parents were from Williamsburg.
Oh, nice.
And I was born in Bushwick.
Yeah.
So we used to go to Havemeyer Street. And, you know, that's where there was a lot of husky kids, I guess, because it was the only shops that carried what I could wear. And it was Oshkosh Bagosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So talk about some Brooklyn stories.
It's true.
How's the pizza in Canarsie?
I like it actually, although I feel like it's changed. You know, my favorite pizza is actually from Park. Is it the Park in Howard Beach on Cross Bay Boulevard?
Yes. I Cross Bay Boulevard. I remember it's the one corner and it's a pizza shop. It's iconic. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Please do. I'm sorry.
Speak.
I think a Park something pizza.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, I feel like some of that. Well, I was in Bensonhurst. You grew up in Bensonhurst, right? And I had to get pizza there.
New Park Pizza.
New Park Pizza.
New Park Pizza. There you go. Big shout out to Howard Beach, New Park Pizza.
Yeah.
You got your neighbor from Canarsie jumping over to get some pizza.
I love it so much. But yeah, I feel sometimes like pizza, it's changed since we grew up. You know, I feel like it's half of it tastes like cardboard.
Well, I say because we're from Brooklyn, and you know Brooklyn has that pride for the pizza. So.
I know, but it depends on where you go. Like as I said, Bensonhurst is good, and Howard Beach is good.
Yeah, well, we're gonna backtrack a little bit because you're in Canarsie.
Yes.
You are writing for the Canarsie Courier.
Yes.
So big up on that.
Thank you.
Most recently, and we got to really just tease it for you guys who are listening and watching, you interviewed our mayor, Eric Adams. I want to talk about that interview a little later.
Okay.
Among the other high profile interviews, I mean, I mentioned some names before, but Donna Karan's in that list as well. You've got Heather Graham. You've got, was it Susan Lucci?
Yes.
That's Days of Our Lives. Like, how many days? 40 years worth of days, because she was on air for a very long time.
Oh, yes. That was
villain, right?
actually at the American Heart Association. She was the advocate because I believe that she had something wrong with her heart a couple of years ago. So that was a wonderful event that we were happy to go to.
I saw her on a show, not to get off topic, but it was a show called Generation Gap. And she was there, and like the kids who are like 11, 12 years old are playing with their grandparents, and it's like, who can remember who she was? Grandparents were on point. The kids had no clue. So
true.
we're going to go back into that journey as when you were a child, obviously living in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And then other places.
Sure.
But Brooklyn called you back.
Brooklyn called me back.
All right. So with that, folks, we're going to come right back to a break here. And my man's going to drop this up. And let's throw some music in there to get you guys going. Let's do it.
De regreso con Anthony from the Neighborhood.
Aquí estamos de regreso y estamos hablando con Melissa Billie Clark. We've been talking to her about her journey and really just going back and remembering Brooklyn. We both grew up in Brooklyn. So you brought back the story to the 80s. And, you know, we made some fun of what Brooklyn was like in the 80s. And now, you know, how far it has gone. I think that every neighborhood, in my personal opinion, is a great neighborhood. And it's just getting people's mindsets to look in a certain direction or perspective, and then things start to change. Yeah. And you've seen the change in Canarsie throughout the entire time since the 80s. You never left the community when a lot of people did. What's the reason you stuck by?
Well, I actually left when I was 19. I moved to Rhode Island just to get away. But then something had me come back. So I ended up coming back to Brooklyn, which I love so much. It's a beautiful community. Everybody's very kind. We actually take care of one another.
So you had 19 years in Brooklyn. You left just to try to something different.
Yes.
But you can't leave Brooklyn. You come back to Brooklyn. What was the miracle that pulled you out of Rhode Island and brought you back? Well, to our island.
Yes.
Because Brooklyn is on an island, folks.
Yes, it is. Actually, it was a medium who I met in Rhode Island, and my grandparents came through. It was like insane. She knew things that nobody ever knew. So she ended up telling me, your father wants you home. And me and my father were very close. My father was the love of my life. He was such a wonderful dad. And nearly did I know 10 years later he would perish. But that's what brought me back. So I came back when I was 28 years old and just stayed with my parents. I loved being with them.
Yeah.
And that's when I went back to school. And
I gotta say, nosotros los Latinos nos gusta mucho la espiritualidad. Like, we think about spiritual and, spirituality and so forth. And, you may have your own preference in religion and so forth. But you had someone come and speak to you that your grandparents had a message from, like, the afterlife. Señores, es que una persona le venga a traer un mensaje de un espíritu de otro mundo. O sea, ya han pasado de vida. Y los abuelos le contaron. Your grandparents come through this medium.
Yes.
Okay. And they say, go back to Brooklyn for what?
Your dad wants you home.
Now,
it was.
Did you call your dad and say, Dad, do you really want me home? How did that conversation go?
It's fun. I didn't say it at that moment, but when I got home, I sat down with him and we sat down. We used to do wine and cheese together.
Yeah.
And I told him what happened. And he said, I really did want you home. I really missed you.
Yeah.
And it was very important to me because I was able to spend those 10 years with him. So I was very happy that I got that message.
Now, when you were with him for this time, was it an adjustment or did you just feel like you were back at home?
I felt like I was back at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was difficult growing up in our family. There was a lot of fighting going on. Back then, nobody got divorced. So when I got home, I kind of told Mom and Dad, I'm like, we can't be fighting anymore. Enough. And we ended up getting a dog, and that dog actually saved us. That dog saved us. Hendrix, my Jimi Hendrix, who I still have till this day. My Jimi Hendrix. And it was wonderful. And ever since then, it was just, we all got along, and it was just beautiful.
Now, you're back in Brooklyn. You also had a different career.
Yes.
Right? Una carrera completamente diferente, señores. Te lo estoy diciendo. Ponga atención. A different career. You're down in this path. Law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I always say this, like the digital footprint, LinkedIn, Instagram, all these things, they are a slight representation of who you really are and the things you went through, those trials. John Jay College, CUNY School in the city, law enforcement, but you never went forward with that. What was the reason to start in the first place?
Well, I'm a woman of service. I love to help people. And that's what I wanted to do. Right. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a part of that community. What I really wanted to get into being a cop was being forensic psychology. So I wanted to go to the jails and find out why people did what they did to hurt others.
Right.
But yeah, life took a turn, and my mom ended up getting cancer at that time when I took my JST. And getting into the academy, she ended up having breast cancer, but that's not what killed her at the time. But it just wasn't meant to be for me.
And that was later in life. Like, you weren't just a kid in high school saying, hey, I want to get into the law enforcement. You had time to think about things.
Yeah.
You had already gone to Rhode Island, and I'm assuming back, and you're already in your later 20s.
Yes.
And you're saying, no, I want to make this decision to be of service and to become a police officer and start this journey. Now, you mentioned your mom.
Yeah.
Big person in your life. She had a lot to tell you. She told you something that ultimately changed your entire path.
I'm not going to cry. Remember Jerry Maguire?
I got you.
I'm not going to cry.
I got you. But you know, I want to pay homage to it.
Absolutely.
I don't want to neglect the fact because it's what put you on this path. And I think it's what led you to really fulfill the service that I think makes an impact. Because many times we do things in our job, we do things in our career that we think that's what we're supposed to do. And we think that's where we're really exercising our gifts. But your mom saw it differently. And your mom herself kind of got you ready or has helped you along the way for that role.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to us about your relationship with mom.
So my dad died in 2015 and of a quick heart attack. And 18 months later, she went along with him. So 4 months later, she ended up getting lung cancer. So they say, you know, when your loved one dies, all your problems go right here in your chest.
Yeah.
And all of her sorrow and grief went there. So 4 months later, she had terminal lung cancer. And she said, I'm going to do the chemo and everything to be with my kids for the year and a half that I have. And I stopped everything. I took care of her. I took her to doctors. I took her to chemo. Whatever she wanted to do, I did.
You were the closest one, right?
Yeah.
In terms of siblings?
Yeah, because my sisters have families, you know, and I'm the single gal, you know.
Yeah.
So I love doing it. It was a beautiful bond that we shared. And at the end of her life, you know, we made our calls and she said her goodbyes. And I remember she was on morphine. And I opened up the window and I said, "It's time to go." You know, that's what they say. If you give them permission to go.
Right.
And she was on morphine. She wasn't speaking. And out of nowhere, she goes, "I'm going to help you. You watch." And I said, please, I'm going to need you because I don't got daddy. I didn't even have time to mourn my father because I was so busy taking care of her. So, excuse me. So she departed, and 4 months later, I became a published writer. The Canarsie Courier took a chance on me. I had no experience.
So your mom said, "I'm going to take care of you."
Yeah.
You were in a place, and I'm assuming you were in a place where you felt lost.
Yes.
Dad's not around. You're going to go embark on this career. Were you 100% on like law enforcement is the way to go, or were there doubts in you that you just were like, I just feel that this could work, but I'm not exactly there?
Yeah, no, this was actually later. I was done with the law enforcement. I knew because I was 35 or 36 at the time. So I think
that's the cutoff date.
Cutoff is 5. Yeah. So I knew that I wanted, this is like this career found me being a reporter. I get to be the voice for the voiceless. I get to help people tell their stories. And this is, I mean, it's service.
Was that your mother?
I think so. I totally think so because she's helped me along the way. She's done things that I can't even imagine. And they say, you know, people just die.
Your makeup is fine. Don't worry.
Excuse me. I can't. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm
Take
crying,
your time.
by the way. But yeah, you know, people say that people die and that's it. I don't believe that. I believe energy lives on and our ancestors help us. And I know in the Latino community, a lot of people think like that. You know, I have friends who think like that. And it's, you know, that's where people go wrong because after people die, they don't know what to do with themselves. Yeah, I didn't know what to do with myself. I ended up spending most of my money. I didn't know what to do, you know, so I would do whatever it took. But what people have to understand is that energy doesn't die and you can have a relationship with your loved ones after they're gone. And that's what I talk about a lot on my shows because people turn to substance, right? They become sex addicts. They do things to make themselves feel good and escape.
Which ultimately is something that you feel has more of an impact because we talked about getting into law enforcement, but you were going to get into forensic psychology, which means after the fact. Now you're kind of jumping ahead of the fact or of the probable fact, because if they're continuously acting in a certain sort of way, then probably the fact is going to be a bad outcome of some sort of criminal action and so forth, substance abuse or something like that against themselves, or someone around them could be getting hurt. We don't know what the damage could be like, but you're kind of jumping ahead of that and bringing awareness to it. Yeah. I'm going to bring it back to when I was on your program. You shouted me out and you were like, "Why don't you talk about your celiac?"
Yeah.
Señores, yo tengo una condición donde yo no puedo comer productos que contienen trigo o nada entre esa familia. Me hace malestares, me hace daño. Se llama celiac. Hay gente que tiene alergia y hay gente que tiene una enfermedad. I happen to have celiac disease. And you were like, you should talk about it. And it's interesting because I never thought about it. And I'm not abusing a substance. I'm trying to avoid a substance.
Right.
But, you know, when your mom said something like, I'll take care of you, you know, essentially you're taking care of a lot of people by bringing this information out.
Okay.
I don't know if you know, her intentions were just for you, if I can say that. Like, it's almost like her intentions were that you would be cared for by what you care for others. So I believe with you 100% that things continue on and there's an energy in everything, especially as human beings. I think that our impact lasts, and we just have to find the place to be there. Sure. 4 months later, you're published. I want to get to that. I'm going to have to go to a quick break because my guy's itching on the turntables to do something. And I want you to be ready for this conversation because I want to talk about your success and what you've done, because I like to inspire people that are from the neighborhood to see that they too have an opportunity to pick their path, as crooked as may be, but they'll get there and they'll accomplish their dream. So let's go to a quick break. I'll be right back.
De regreso con Anthony from the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's right. We're back here on the program with Melissa Billie Clark, and my DJ is doing a great job with the music. I love it. I mean, DJ, is your mic working over there? Why don't you give yourself a quick shout out?
Hey, what's happening, Anthony?
That's Triple R in the building, putting on the music. There we go.
Yeah.
Melissa, so if you like the music, that's that man right there.
He's
making
very
it happen.
talented.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So we've had a great time talking about this path. We had a chance to give thanks to your mom.
Thank you.
So you can do the hi mom thing.
Yes.
Because energy does travel. I agree with you 100%.
Yes.
Your dad, big shout out to him because he said, I did, or, you know, I want you home. I do want you home. When you were away for 10 years.
Yes.
Big shout out to Rhode Island, by the way. Anybody from Rhode Island checking us out on the Latino Mixx website or any other platform that we're on?
Yes.
Big shout out to them.
Rhody.
Brooklyn's home.
Yes.
We're still in Brooklyn.
Still here.
Now,
Love it.
The career changed. Mommy said, I'm going to take care of you. We talked about that. Talk to me about your first entry into this world, you know, seeing this as a new space for you. Obviously, nobody knows you in this space. How did you start to make a name for yourself? What did you do?
I started with the Canarsie Courier. And, you know, as I told you before, they took a chance on me, which was so wonderful. I had no experience. And we had Catherine Rosa, who was the the editor-in-chief at the time. And now it's Linda, who's wonderful. And Catherine had passed away from cancer. I think it was a year after I started.
Okay.
But she was tough. You know, they gave me my own column. I had a column at the time, talking to people on the streets about topics. So, yeah, I started there. And then from there, I went to Metropolitan Magazine. I became their features editor, and I did New York Fashion Week, and that's a New York luxury magazine.
Yeah. That's New York Fashion Week, I can imagine.
Yeah. So I enjoyed doing that. And what happened was one day, me and my editor, Adam Kluger, I have to plug him, I love him, he said, we were interviewing Moby.
Okay.
And he goes, you should be in front of the camera. You should not be, we had a camera and everything. And he goes, you should be interviewing him in front of the camera. And I said, okay. I was so nervous. He was my first big celebrity interview.
Wow.
And that's how that started. So Adam gave me the confidence. He goes, you're too good to be behind the camera. And I love that. I think everybody gets chances from people. All you need is just that nudge.
Yeah, that opening. So you go through this door, you go ahead and you take the chance. This is something where you were, first of all, you took the chance at writing.
Yes.
They opened the door up this much.
Yeah.
They brought you into the local paper. Now you said, I'm going to open up a little further. You're ending up at New York Fashion Week.
Yeah.
And someone says, I'm going to open it up a little bit more for you. They put you in front of the camera. And now you've got the people face to face. It's time to put it on.
Yes.
You got it or you don't.
Yeah.
How was your first interview?
It was with Moby, and it was frightening. It was frightening, but because he's wonderful. He's weirdly wonderful, a good weird though, and I enjoyed talking to him. He was very kind, so I really loved it. And then ever since then, I just started interviewing and working for more news magazines, and then I started my own show, Making a Difference.
Wow. Well, you've got a lot of high-profile interviews. I'm going to get into a couple of these because, like I said, the door opens up just this much for you guys, but you got to be willing to walk through it. And sometimes, well, you could be in a very bright room, but the light that comes out of that little hole happens to be much, much brighter because it is in tune with the way you feel inside, with who you were really meant to be. See, a lot of times we think we have the manual on life, but it takes somebody, your mom, or anybody, or something, an incident in your life, an accident, a realization, a moment of doubt for you to say, maybe I never thought of it this way. Maybe I never gave myself the chance. They took a chance on you, right? Sure. But maybe you didn't give yourself a chance. And that does an injustice to you. But this little bit of a door opens up, right? This little crack, right? Just go right through that little crack. And then it opens up. And these interviews are huge. I'm looking at a long list of interviews here, and I'm just going to do my quick math. 9 on a column, 3 across, 27 high-profile interviews. This is my math, right?
Thank you.
Multiplication table worked for me. Which one of these interviews stood out to you to be the most impactful?
Oh God, if I can say, I think I'm going to say Michael Kutcher.
Really?
Michael Kutcher.
Wow.
And I'll say Randy Spelling too, but Michael Kutcher, they're both lovely. I've been working with them for all these years now. They come on every platform that I'm on. They're so sweet. Michael Kutcher is Ashton Kutcher's twin brother, and he has cerebral palsy.
Okay.
And he does everything he can to fight and help people who have disabilities, as he says. And he had a heart transplant when he was 13, and it's been all over the news. And you've seen Christopher Ashton. He talks about it and how it impacted him. But Michael is one of the most humble people I've ever encountered. And
doesn't everybody serve a purpose on this world?
Absolutely.
Like, I think if you really put yourself in tune and in connection with the rest of the world, you'll see that you're here for much more than what is seen by others or what is seen by you in your own reflection of your mirror. So, you sit there, and a lot of times people say, well, I'm limited because I look a certain way. I come from a certain neighborhood. You could have felt the same way. You're a minority in Canarsie, by what we've talked about, Spanish Harlem, by the time of 1980s, you don't fit. And someone could say, well, I have cerebral palsy, I have celiac, I don't fit. But you can't let that be a stumbling block. I one time would tell people, like, you could be deaf, mute, blind, and you're still for some reason valuable. Why? Because with you, they create research foundations and they try to figure out cures and so on and so forth. It's not that you're some guinea pig, but you are a chance for people to uncover things that could save many, many other lives.
Absolutely.
So give a little bit, because you don't know what the world is missing.
Yeah.
And you've had one of your most impactful interviews is Michael Kutcher.
I like him very much. I like his message. Everybody that I interview, they have so many great messages, and as you say, they have something to offer.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. And I thought you were going to say Deepak.
That was very nerve-wracking. That's a different, in order to speak to this wonderful human being that I've studied for 15 years, you have to know the language. And at some points he's like, are you getting this? I'm like, oh yeah.
Yes.
It was very, it was a time.
There are huge names on here, but what I think the biggest thing to highlight here is that you actually walked through that door.
Yes.
A lot of people are presented with opportunities. They don't go through the door. They feel that the things I mentioned, where I'm from, what I look like, language I speak, what orientation I have, or how I identify myself isn't accepted in society. Folks, society doesn't know what it has until you put it on the table. Mm-hmm. Serve the plate. I guess I'm going back into my days of working in a kitchen or my dad's store. It's like, if you don't put the product on the shelf, how do you know you need it? You got to put yourself out there.
I agree.
I applaud you for doing that. Big round of applause for Melissa here for doing that sort of thing, because how many stories have you put out there besides the high profile folks?
Yeah.
How many stories have you put out there? I mean, since you started?
A lot. There's a lot of stories out there, and I try to be, as I tell you, the voice for the voiceless and for, help my community. I'm in a big Haitian community, and I get along with them so well. They're so grateful that I do write these stories, and I do write them with heart.
I love that.
Yeah, and we try to, and I was telling you during the break, I interviewed Pete Hamill, and Pete Hamill was a huge journalist at the New York Times, and Jimmy Bressel. So there was actually a show about them.
So you interviewed another reporter,
a huge reporter,
essentially somebody in your industry.
I went to his home. He actually passed away, I think, last year or the year before. Yeah.
Tell us what he was doing.
He was huge. He was sick at the time and he retired. But what he loved to do was interview a veteran that was homeless. And what he would write about it, literally the next day, 5 offers to get a job, because this man's like, I can't get a job. Nobody will give me a chance. So people would come with clothing and get his hair done and take care of him, and he would have a job. So that's
impactful.
I told Mr. Hamill, I said, I am so, you're like my idol, because I love that. That's the point of being a journalist, is to get messages out. Just today I wrote an article about suicide. And because
big news nowadays,
because we're in Suicide Month, and this beautiful woman Simone and her agency RYM, they are helping people talk. She was telling me that a lot of Caribbean families don't talk about their feelings.
I would vouch for that. I would vouch for that. As a
Absolutely.
Dominican, I would vouch for that. It's very difficult, and it's hard, I think, in general, to just be vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I think that that's where the learning really comes about, because that's when you drop the facade of I have to be this thing, and you just let it be. So you've done this in your community. Are you still with the Canarsie?
Absolutely. I won't leave them.
And how have you seen this impact, now that you're getting, these stories, how have you seen that impact your community?
Well, it's just so lovely, because I connect people, right? So that's my job. That's what I love to do. I should have been a PR, because I connect everybody.
Yeah.
But they're very grateful. Oh, I read the article. My God, that's so heartful. Like, thank you so much for making us look like that. I'm like, but you did it. I'm just telling your story. You're the one who's doing the job.
Wow.
I'm just the person behind the pen, but I'm doing it with my heart.
I'm glad you did that for Pete, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
And that's something some camaraderie that you wish to achieve in every industry.
Absolutely.
And that you're still doing it for your community.
Well, that's what I wanted to use my journalism for the greater good. That's why I started Making a Difference, which I would love to have you on.
Wow.
Because that's what you do. You totally make a difference. If I can kindly give you props, because you're truly amazing. You're blowing me away right now. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you. And I appreciate it. I don't know really how to answer those sort of things. So, but I'm learning. I'm learning. And I think that's, I think if we can continue to enrich each other, that makes a neighborhood, to plug in the name. But
absolutely,
the truth is, it does. It creates a sense of community. And the fact that we start realizing, like what you said before, I don't believe that people just die. No. It continues going. It runs through our veins, our ancestors.
Absolutely.
Even if we don't know the exact history, there is something there. There is a beauty mark, a gray hair, or something there that came from that other relative. So we must recognize where we're coming from. Yeah. And I think you're doing wonderful with all these stories, high profile interviews or not. The fact is that it's getting put out there, and it's getting put out there responsibly. I want to go ahead and go to a quick break, but I want to get into how people can start developing themselves in this space. Because I know some people have ideas, but they don't want to put it on paper. They have a feeling, but they don't want to get in front of the camera. They don't want to express it. I think that's very important. And if you don't want to be a celebrity, you don't want to be a reporter, it's totally fine, but at least do it in your own household. Be a representative of your household. Be a person that's willing to have this type of communication, this vulnerability, and make it happen at home. Because a strong home makes for a stronger community. Stronger community, stronger neighborhoods, boroughs, cities, states, countries, and the world. We're going to go to a quick break. Thank you so much. I'll be right back.
De regreso con Anthony from the neighborhood.
Yes, and we're back here, and we've been talking to Melissa Billie Clark this entire program, learning a lot about her journey. And I want her to share some insights, a few tips, because maybe there's people out there who don't want to put themselves in front of a camera, who don't want to necessarily put their words on paper. But I think it serves many purposes, and I'm going to have her share with you how to get on that journey, because your journey wasn't a straight path.
Right.
So give us some tips for folks who are out there. And let's see if they got our next writer, maybe next door.
Well, social media is like the perfect place to do this. You can reach India from anywhere. You know what I mean? So I think if you use your social media for the positive, for the greater good, you can really get good messages out there. With that, if you want to become a writer, if you're a good writer, take some classes, talk to other people, intern. I'm telling you, I used to do things for free, pro bono, and it helps.
So are we talking just like 14 to 21 year olds, or are we talking like intern at like 28?
You can do whatever if that's your passion and that's what you want to do, you'll never work a day in your life. I know that you have to make money. Trust me, I get it. I've worked as a waitress, my second job, my whole life for 20 something years. So now what I do is I go into food writing, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And service. So everything is a learning experience, but just stay humble.
That's cool. Talk about that. You literally been served.
I've been served, that's right.
And so this is interning is one thing you mentioned.
Yes.
Practicing, talking to people.
Absolutely.
What if you're a terrible writer, you're horrible with your, punctuation, grammar, or whatever? How do you get better? There's
so many programs out there that can help you. Now we have the AI, which don't do that. No good writer is going to use AI to write for them. But there's so many people out there that can help you. Free resources, go on YouTube. You can do it. You can do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the AI, because we see that AI has been such a big influence in our lives, but we still have to recognize AI comes from a human being. So you have to have the pure intelligence to have the artificial intelligence. So while we are all trying to get pure and organic foods, we can't let the food that this consumes be all artificial. We have to make sure that we're getting some whole food or
Absolutely.
Wholesome food or organic, however you want to label your food. Make sure that you're putting the right stuff in here, because they say also garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
So if we have artificial intelligence, you still need human intelligence and human experiences. I like that you touched on that.
Thank you.
Do you see that a lot of people are going to the AI and forgetting about writing themselves?
Yeah. There's jobs out there where they want you to humanize what AI is writing, and which is great. That's fine. But, it just everything comes from the heart. You're not going to have a good story unless you have some blood and sweat and tears in it.
Yeah. And we're talking across all the arts, writing, music, and so forth. Wow, this is amazing. And well, folks, listen, I've got a great segment that usually comes up right around this time, towards the end of the program. And this is where we get to ask the question that I wouldn't ask, or I wouldn't think of asking. So we're going to go to the mystery box right here.
I'm excited.
All right, here's the mystery box. And let's see what's going to be the question here. If I can get that sound effects cue to pop up. All right. So the question of the day here is, what's your favorite lunch? Great, because we're right about lunchtime.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Yeah, so what's your favorite lunch? That's your question.
I like a nice salad. I do something very light, because we're going to be working throughout the day, right? If we have a big bowl of pasta, we're going to fall asleep. So I like something just to keep me going, and I'll just have some nuts with that and berries, and a nice salad I like.
Well, okay. Well, I feel completely unhealthy here, because I'm over here with un moro con pollo frito y una cosa así, totones, un madurito. Obviously, I'm going through a whole Dominican cuisine menu.
I love it. It sounds very appetizing.
Yes. May put you to sleep, though, because it's rice, it's meat, it's plantains. But you know what? Food is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful way to end this program here, because when you prepare a dish, it's a culmination of ingredients. Yeah. And it's not artificial. It's from the heart when you cook, and you can taste it. Your writing is doing that. It's giving a voice to people. It's providing nutrition to your community, where people don't forget about life when they read it in the paper and see themselves in the story. Melissa, anything you'd like to add? Because that was a great way to sum this up.
I really appreciate you having me on your program and doing what you're doing. You're really helping other people. And thank you for telling my story. I'm very humble. I don't hear it much, and I usually tell other people's stories. But yeah, thank you so much for all that you do.
Well, I'm glad, and I hope it's a good appetizer for your lunch.
Absolutely.
Well, with that, folks, we've had a great program here, seeing so much of life, and obviously I'm proud because it's from Brooklyn, but we got many more places to discover. So until next time, I'll be seeing you back in the neighborhood.